exciting announcement. We now have Brockton Bay Book Club merch. We've got our Brockton Bay Book Club t-shirt, as well as the Brockton Bay's sweatshirt. They look sweet. Hannah designed them, and they're amazing. So if you're interested in that, link will be in the description. And shout out to Hannah for all the sweet designs. Thanks so much for your guys' support, and go check it out. Worm is a web serial by J.C. McCrae, also known as Wildbow. You can read Worm in its original format by visiting parahumans.wordpress.com or donate to Wildbow's Patreon at patreon.com/wildbow. This story isn't intended for young or sensitive readers. Readers who are on the lookout for trigger warnings are advised to give Worm a pass. For a complete list, check the description for all of Worm's trigger warnings.
Take that, you worms. Welcome back to Arc 28 of Worm by Wildbow. And we are in it. We are in it. We're in the thick of it.
The end game.
The end game, you could say. We've made it. Alan and Michael here joining me as always. Gentlemen, it's a pleasure.
Absolutely.
Yep.
And we've hit the part of our story together where we're putting final pieces together, but a lot of this stuff just kind of ends up being like, where does this fight scene go? Where does that fight scene go? It's a lot of just sort of structure and pacing at this point, because I mean, chime in, Alan, but I think generally a lot of this stuff is just gonna translate 1-to-1. Page to screen.
I have 2 notes for this entire arc. This is a lot of scenes that need restructuring. And is this whole thing just Endbringer bullshit?
Yeah, the whole thing is Endbringer bullshit. That is true.
I'm not going to lie. I'm going to come out strong on this. I think a lot of this just needs to be cut.
Cut. I mean, cut is maybe a strong word for me, but I do agree. There's a ton of just it's not really exposition, but yeah, there's a lot of dead air here that I think could be restructured a good bit between the fight scenes. I mean, and most of this arc is talking. There's not a lot of fighting in this arc.
Yeah, which I'm okay getting a break. No problems with that. Let me go over things that I think are good. I think having Canary as potentially a point of view person to observe all the stuff that's going on would be really good. If we kind of just followed Canary observing all this standing next to Taylor, I think that would be a really good time. I think setting up all of the different, the Battle of Five Armies, setting up all the different groups, having their little interactions as we talk about like what's preparing for, how are we going to fight Scion? I feel like a lot of this can get separate. Like, I feel like this is going to get blended up and thrown into other arcs that will be whole episodes. In TV format, I feel like the Endbringer thing as a whole either needs to get more explanation, potentially, or a lot of it needs to get cut out. Because I think in show format, it's going to come across really clunky.
Yeah, I'm definitely in favor of better explanation and maybe more I was doing a lot of reading of comments on like old posts on Reddit and space battles and things like that were talking about these arcs as kind of they came out. And there was some really fun, like people were kind of doing what we're doing now, just sort of making sense of it. It was confusing to read at the time. Fans were trying to put it together. And some fans, I think erroneously, but I really like the idea. We're talking about how questioning, did the Endbringers go dormant when Eidolon died? And because I think they sort of try to touch on that a little in the arc, if I remember right. I don't think they really do, but I really like that idea of driving home the point that there's the connection, like to further strengthen that bond between Eidolon and the Endbringers. Little things like that, like just having them go dormant when he dies, or, wander aimlessly maybe without destruction, just sort of purposeless, things like that could really strengthen or could better sell the Endbringers in terms of what they are.
Yeah. Yeah. It almost makes me wonder if we drew a more obvious connection between the fact that Taylor is the counterpart to Eidolon's shard.
Mm-hmm.
That is right? I'm not making that up. Yeah.
No, yeah.
If there was some way for Taylor to be the one to essentially pick up the Endbringers, that because of her conversation with Glass-Steagall and Tattletale, they figure out that like, oh, the Endbringers need direction now, and honest to God, you're the closest thing to Eidolon. So like maybe you could take over as, as their administrator,
Mm-hmm.
but controlling them.
Yeah, I think that's a fun idea to play with. The only trade-off is I do like that we get more Tattletale beats with her and the Simurgh, specifically in this arc.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if I'd want to take away from that dynamic necessarily, but I do like the idea, especially again with a show, of trying to reinforce and strengthen this concept of what the shards are, so that it's a little more natural when you have some other moments and certain interactions make a little bit more sense. Have more conversations about the passengers, etc. Things like that. I do like that a lot.
Yeah. I mean, the quick and easy answer would be that Taylor takes over Eidolon's position and then hands off control and says like, hey, Simurgh, you follow her now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's how you can split the Endbringers up to, hey, Leviathan, you go over here. This just feels like a lot of unnecessary stuff going on. And once again, I keep putting it off, but I don't think we're going to have a good structure to build around this until we get into later. Like, I think next arc will be the one that helps us like retroactively go back and form all these.
Yeah, it's funny. I think so we kind of talked about this a few arcs ago, how I think a lot of the season is going to sort of fall into place as we kind of reread the arcs again. There is part of me that almost wants to go back and retcon our season 4 a little bit and end season 4 with the Jack Slash stuff and leave all of season 5 just for the fight against Scion. I say part of me because I don't think there's really enough to fill in there. We'd have to be filling in a lot more stuff, which I think we could. But I've thought a lot about that. I was like, man, so much of once the tone shifts so violently when Scion flips.
It's a whole different show.
It's a whole it's so different. And my concern is that it's either if you did it like halfway in the middle of the season, you risk really giving people whiplash between the first half and the back half. So you could either shorten it and leave it for like the last 2 episodes, but that doesn't feel like enough time to give the weight of what you need. So then the other alternative was just to lengthen it and just make the whole season, the final season, just a whole different kind of animal.
Yeah, I still don't like that because I don't think the Scion fight. I mean, it has the potential to be a full season, but I really don't think it should be.
Yeah,
Just
I mean,
lengthwise.
it's that's the conversation is how much time it's I think it's the single biggest issue with a lot of these what I'll call prestige television, although I think that's a little broad. But a lot of shows struggle when you're heading towards a big conclusion. A lot of shows struggle to adequately pace the conclusion. Game of Thrones being the obvious example, but I'll throw Stranger Things in there. I mean, obviously it hasn't concluded yet. We'll see how they do it. But I have a feeling that the final season of Stranger Things will feel pretty rushed just from how slow the show has been up to until this point.
I just found out that Stranger Things is still airing.
Yeah, they got one more season. A lot of shows, I feel like a lot of shows struggle with that. And again, if we want to talk about mutual things that we love that I think pace very well, not a show, but I think Mass Effect is a beautifully paced story. And that is a story that really does a true 3-act structure in 3 games. But the final act, the final game, is the attack. Like, is the Reapers have attacked? It's not the final bit of the final game. It's the entire final game, and it's paced very, very well.
Yeah. I mean,
I think you could.
The whole of Mass Effect 1 is essentially this last season. It's hunting down Jack Slash, aka Saren.
Yeah, right. Right.
Who unfortunately has, activated the Reapers. Then it's also spoiler warning for Mass Effect.
Yeah.
And then 2 is essentially finally divining what the shards are / what the Reapers are, kind of. And then 3 is Scion going wild and having to put him down / the Reapers showing up and ruining everything.
I mean, it's kind of funny. We're kind of on a Mass Effect tangent here. We've joked around. We've recorded little bits for our Patreons and things like that about, what if we tried to make Worm into a movie or something like that, or a trilogy at the shortest, and like, what would you cut? What would you keep? Challenges, etc. Honestly, if you were to structure a Worm trilogy and structure and pace it like the Mass Effect plot lines and just hit the same beats and just swap out entities for Reapers, etc., that would work. I think you'd have a pretty good Worm. I would obviously be very, very, very different from the web serial, but I think that's how you do it. I think that's how you do it.
Do we want to have a quick aside for that real quick?
Quick aside, am I giving you inspiration?
Quick aside? Okay, if you join me at the sidebar. So, hear me out. And we're going to be blending this heavily with the Mass Effect.
Sure.
So you are a superhero on a task force to take down the serial killer group Slaughterhouse 9. You make your way through them to get to Jack Slash, only to find out that the reason they really wanted to go after him so hard is because he's been prophesized to end the world. So
I like it.
You finally catch up with him. He does something. You don't understand what it is, but he dies or gets caught or whatever. That's the end of movie 1 / game 1 of Mass Effect.
Yeah.
Worm 2, the wormening.
Yeah. Too Worm, Too Furious.
Yeah. Is, honestly, if you wanted to keep it really close, you'd be, I'm working for Cauldron now.
I was going to say, that could just be like the Cauldron arc.
Yeah.
Essentially.
You somehow get, you got hurt during the fight, yada, yada. You get rescued by Cauldron. They give you power boosters too. And you end up working for Cauldron because they say that they have the key to stopping the end of the world. And while you disagree with a lot of their tactics, there's a lot of things that they are able to do, lots of portaling in and out, yada, yada. And ultimately, you find out that what Jack did was kick off the Slaughterhouse 9. And honestly, you could even just have you fight the Slaughterhouse 9. You find out that it wasn't the Slaughterhouse 9 that you were going after. It was specifically Jack, and he gets away at the end of 1. But you stop them from doing Killington or something like that.
Right.
2 is chasing Jack down through a bunch of different worlds, and you ultimately capture him, but he sets something off. You're not quite sure. Movie 3 is Scion is what he's activated and starts destroying everything, and so you're just trying to stop that using your resources with Cauldron, both fighting for and against Cauldron, and also working with the Protectorate. And yeah. I think that fits pretty well into the Mass Effect beats.
Yeah.
I already want to play this game / this Telltale game.
I was going to say, I can see it now.
A Telltale game would be really good for this.
Okay, the question, of course, who is our Caden stand-in?
Ooh.
Who gets offed?
Oh, man.
Is it just like, just Leet?
Oh, I was going to say, you do Defiant.
Oh, okay.
But then he comes back.
Right.
As Arms Master in a much later thing, and you have to deal with the fallout of you left him to die.
Yeah.
Like you still have all the same personality problems, which is what causes you to be like, ooh, that guy has to go.
Right.
But then realize he's survived and maybe have to struggle with him becoming a better person and not hating his character.
Oh, it's too much. You ask too much of me.
I know.
Okay, well, in case we have any listeners who don't know Mass Effect.
Yeah. Anyway, out of the sidebar, back to the main podcast.
Yeah.
This has helped me get around some things in my head about.
Yeah, and if you haven't played Mass Effect, you should play Mass Effect. It's a fantastic sci-fi game. Beautiful story.
Yeah, it took me a while. I just now realized in my head as I was thinking about, like, oh man, Drew Capshern or whatever his name is, Sheeran did a great job writing up that universe. I know there were other people. And then I was like, man, I think I've just pictured in my head what the name looks like. And I was like, didn't he do the Rule of Two Star Wars series? Like with Darth Bane and everything?
I don't know. Are you asking?
Hold on, give me a second. I'm going to go to my bookshelf.
Put in bookshelf noises, Michael.
Yeah.
Tossing books.
Yeah. Absolutely did.
Did he really? Wow.
Yeah.
Drew
I was saying.
Carpathian.
What a wonderful world he has written.
Yep, Star Wars and Mass Effect. Oh wow.
A lot of Sith books.
Sick.
Anyway, back to Worm.
Yeah.
Back to Worm. It's difficult because it's such a tone shift, right? So how to make that transition elegantly is going to be interesting.
I think the idea lead up wise here, because I'll be honest, I'm not too concerned with the tone shift. We've had the tone shift before. I think as long as you play like the end of the world is coming, here it is. What is it? Us trying to figure out, is it the Endbringers? Is it these other S-class threats? Is it Cauldron? Which is why like they keep all their people away. It's Scion. And I think this arc, if we were turning this arc into an episode, the focus is really ramping up. I mean, all of this is ramping up to Taylor becoming Kepri and the using all of the weapons and resources at their disposal. So in order to achieve those goals, I think, like I said, if we had Taylor take over as administrator for the Endbringers, I think that kind of touches on the fact that, like, oh, she knows that her powers can extend beyond bugs. Like that's but that's where her shard got set to, essentially. There were bugs around, so that's what it got hardwired to. But or I should say soft wired, really, because at a deep level, she can control things like the Endbringers. Like she's set up hardware wise with that shard to do things like that. So like it puts the seed in the head of like what else could she control, you know? And I think
Yeah.
keeping that ramp going of like, oh, look, she's using control on her bugs. Oh, look, she's using control on the Endbringers. Oh, look, she's coordinating all of the heroes until you get to the Kepri moment and you're like, oh, she's controlling everything.
Yeah, so I don't hate that. I think that's kind of fun to play around with. Man, it's tricky. On the one hand, I don't want to foreshadow Kepri at all. I think the sudden shift of what happens is pretty fun. I have to think about that for a minute because as someone who has constantly been saying I love foreshadowing and I want everything foreshadowed, which is true. It's interesting to try to do it with that. The other two little hangups is one, the Endbringers don't really have too much of an impact on the rest of the story. Like
Right.
they don't. They don't. You know, Leviathan gets offed. I'm pretty sure, right? If my memory serves, I think Scion takes care of him. I know Simmer gets free, but doesn't really contribute to anything. So it's like it for something that feels so momentous, it doesn't have the payoff I think that people would want. If you get this moment where Taylor can control, even mildly control the Endbringers, people are going to think that's the win condition because of how grand that is. And it's fine that it's not. It's almost great that it's not, right? It's kind of cool, but I do think you'd have some disappointment there.
Yeah.
The second thing is that foreshadowing Kepri isn't really the goal because Kepri doesn't really win. I mean, like Scion could just wipe them all out. She just bullies him. So like foreshadowing the Kepri moment isn't the goal. It's foreshadowing the emotional strain that Scion's under, which you can do a lot of different ways. But yeah, I don't know. I'm thinking out loud here.
Well, I think ability wise, you don't want to just come up with an I can do this out of nowhere. I think setting up the fact that her shard, and they've talked about it before, but that her shard has this ability and she can do it with more than just bugs. Does she need to do this with the Endbringers for us to explain this? No, she does. No, we'll figure it out when it happens. Like, oh yeah, obviously she can do this. But yeah, I don't know how you just get rid of the Endbringers, because I'd be okay with that if you just the Endbringers when Eidolon got killed all kaput, like, 'cause they don't really serve a purpose like you said.
Yeah, I mean, I'm fine. Again, I'm fine with them kind of going dormant, and if maybe then you could use them at the end, especially Leviathan. Have Kepri grab one out of a portal, drop it on him, distract him for a minute, and then he's toast. You could still kill him off, kind of the same way.
Yeah,
And
I do like the idea of like she's throwing bodies, and then all of a sudden the big portal and Simmer comes through.
Right.
And that would be a great point where like you have not just Simmerg, but she, Avengers assembles all the Endbringers to come out. A couple of them do that, and then you have your moment with the Simmerg dropping down with the sword to stab Scion. The way that she upgraded Leviathan, but we could just
reverse
that
it
in favor of her sword of Damoclesing.
Yeah.
Scion.
Yeah. To unfortunately do nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. That's great. There's a lot of fun ways I think you could probably.
Yeah. I like that. I like bringing in, literally the kitchens, everything, and the kitchen sink at the end rather than
having
it here.
I need a on your left meme now. Except behind Cap, it's the Simurg.
Yeah.
Just coming out the portal.
Mm-hmm.
But again, though, the issue is if you mess with that, you do lose Tattletale's conversation with the Simurg, which I do like. I like that Tattletale has stuff to do here. It's one thing we haven't talked about.
Tattletale. I just don't think it's worth keeping.
And if you want to remove it, that's fine. I think if you do that though, you want to give her something else because the issue with these last few arcs is that they are so Taylor focused, as you would expect from a first person web serial. Not a knock. It's just the reality. Is that you lose so much of these other characters. We've already talked about the fact that you have to do Gru's death a bit better. You have to do Cockblocker. There it is. There's the Freudian slip. Clockblocker's death a bit better. We're already we don't have to say it. We would give more screen time to Weld and the Irregulars. We'd give more screen time to the Birdcage and Panacea. All of this is just assumed. We're going to have to do that. We just haven't really written it in yet. So if you want to take this scene away from Tattletale, I think that's fine. But I do think you have to give her something in return, so that there are characters beyond Taylor in this final season.
This episode of the Brockton Bay Book Club is sponsored by Maid Marian. Maid Marian creates custom cottagecore and run-fair clothing designed for every body. Whether you're looking for a lace-up bodice, rustic apron and pinafore, or ethereal dresses, you'll find items customized for every individual's fit and design. All items are lovingly hand-sewn with attention to detail and a touch of whimsy. Visit Maid Marian today and transform your wardrobe with clothing that feels as enchanting as it looks. Find Maid Marian on Etsy at themaidmarian.etsy.com.
I think another theme we could go with also, especially as we're expanding to try and get more perspectives from Tattletale and Defiant. I in fact, I think that would maybe we go back to Weld too.
Mm-hmm.
We had a truce when we were trying to fight Scion, and now the different bad guy groups have kind of rescattered again.
Mm-hmm.
Essentially pointing out that hey Saint, hey Teacher, hey Youngbon, and I guess the Elite, you're fucking us. We're at the end, and you get the frustration from Tattletale and Taylor and Defiant, all of which have the same concern, which is, man, if these dumb motherfuckers would just do what we told them, if they would only just listen, if they would just do what we commanded them to do, we could get shit done. And building that frustration till you get to the end where, the viewer, the watcher just goes, oh, well, of course, how is everybody not on board with what Taylor's doing? Because obviously this is what we've all wanted this whole time.
Right. Yeah.
And I think getting that frustration building of Saints not cooperating, teachers being a piece of shit, the Yongbon and the Elite are, pillaging worlds. Nobody's being helpful. Why aren't they just listening?
Right. Yeah. No, I mean, I like the idea of putting some more emphasis on these other skirmishes. This is all the background stuff that we're not getting a lot of from Taylor's perspective as we read it. That would be really fun to flesh out. The Yongbon, the Elite, all these other skirmishes that are going on. This vying for power, or groups that think they have the answer to stop the end of the world or defeat Scion. It's so chaotic, and we really only get a sliver of it when we're reading the story. So there's a lot that you can work with here. That's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, I was just going to kind of keep going through the arc here. Towards the end, again, you got I'm just kind of reading through our notes. You've got, bits with the kids, of course, and Charlotte and Glenn and all of them, which feels honestly it felt a little out of place when reading it, but it's a nice little scene, just kind of another reminder that these other characters are here. Little things like that you can always kind of throw in during the season.
Yeah. I think. Yeah, I don't. They're enjoyable to read, but I think they feel very, as we discussed in the other podcast, and as we continue to compare to Mass Effect, a jolting change of pace for what's going on.
It's true.
To be like, clearly, here we go before the last push. Let's say all our goodbyes.
Oh yeah, I made the Mass Effect comparison in the Brockton Bay Book Club, didn't I? Man, we need a Mass Effect tracker.
Yeah, which works all the way back for like when Taylor is setting the tempo of what's going on. Like when she goes to turn herself in, like she has all the time in the world to turn herself in and like become a hero. Like she's setting that pace so she can take her time to say goodbyes. We are under attack by Scion. She needs to get her shit together.
Right. Yeah. It's a bit jolting. Would definitely need to kind of restructure that. If you did want to keep the scene, you'd have to place it somewhere else for sure. Honestly, I think a scene like that would work well immediately after Scion attacks, and they're kind of all trying to figure out what's going on Earth. Which Earth are they on? Gimel, I think.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Earth Gimel.
Yeah. And like Taylor realizes her dad didn't make it and things like that. Like that's when you want to place this scene, shift the tone a bit so it's a bit more chaotic maybe, and she's finding comfort in what few people may qualify as family to her now, those kinds of things. I think that's where you would put a scene like that. But yeah, right here is a little disjointed.
Yeah. Like maybe if Taylor runs into Charlotte and the kids amongst the other refugees, then I'm not too upset. But like Glenn and Kaye, I'm sorry. Like I love Kaye, but those two, we don't need to see them again.
No, they do. They had their time in the sun, for sure. That's most of this arc. Again, we're kind of just struggling to fill time here, but so much of these final arcs will just be longer through nature of action set pieces and things like that. Like even the ones, this is not a very action heavy arc, but there is fighting going on that Wildbow just doesn't flesh out a lot. There's the fighting against the elite and the Yangban that are going on, Leviathan, etc. So like there's a lot of room to stretch time throughout even arcs like this that feel like they would be shorter or a lot would be cut or restructured. So I'm not too worried about filling time. Not to mention, like I said, we've got 4 or 5 other groups of people that we're going to be touching on this entire season. So there's lots of time.
Yeah. The next arc for sure is going to be like really good too. That one I have no doubt will be a good engaging episode. But man, this one just, unless we're going scene by scene, like no, yes, this needs to go before that. Like that's all this arc is.
Yeah, it's a bit of a, as Gandalf would say, the deep breath before the plunge. Yeah. And this is what happens when you make podcasts where you're going arcs of stories at a time, is you're going to hit the arcs that you could probably wrap up. It should have been an email.
Yep. Yeah. And I think this is going to be one of the longer us putting stuff together, I think.
I was thinking about this actually. We may want like another episode. Sorry, Michael. Another episode of you and I just like structuring the season before we present it.
Yeah.
I figured that would probably be a thing.
Yeah. Because I feel like this one in particular is going to need a lot of work in terms of just making sure that we hit all the beats we want to hit.
Yep. Makes sense. restructure, organize, present, and then restructure again.
Exactly.
I mean, the real question will be, do we include the epilogue as part of the season, or do we just, cut those out?
Oh, I don't think we cut it. I think, well, again, I say this as someone who hasn't read the epilogue in like 8 years, so it'll take me a minute. I got to reread it. I don't think you cut it. I think the epilogue is a final episode in my mind.
Yeah, because don't get me wrong, I love an epilogue episode. Like, I think more shows should have an epilogue episode. I enjoy those.
Yeah.
Personally.
Oh, I mean, to jump ahead, just to touch on a little epilogue idea. I want to spoil the epilogue for people. The end of Monsters Inc., right? Where Sully gets a glimpse at Boo, right? Through the broken door that Mike put together.
The kitty scene.
Yeah, right. It's great. And it's beautifully angled and shot. Old Pixar, master of cinematography. You're not looking at Boo, you're looking at Sully, you're seeing his reaction as he opens the door. And you just know by the context that he's getting the closure he wanted. I want that shot. It's everything exactly the same, except replace Mike with Labyrinth or someone like that. Said, hey, I found her. Opens up a portal. Tattletale looks out and, gives the old smile. Just like little things like that I think an epilogue would go a really long way in giving people a little bit of a happy ending that they deserve.
I think we've mentioned it before, but
I love that, Jacob.
Just doing the Batman scene, minus showing Bruce Wayne, but Tattletale gets, you do the whole same thing, found what you're looking for, here's the address.
Yeah.
And Tattletale sits down at the cafe and is looking around and then clearly sees someone and the big smile, and that's where you cut it.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. You gotta, with a show as dark as this, you have to end on a smile or people will throw tomatoes.
Yeah, maybe.
So we've decided to change up where we're going with this. Scion at the end, which just fucking wipes them.
Yeah,
it's a full party wipe.
You've seen the fan edit of Toy Story 3, where
is it just where they cut it? They cut it of them going
into the furnace and then
the credits roll.
Yep.
Oh, yeah, I've seen that. Where the two teenagers or sons cut it for the mom.
Yeah, that's what it is. Yeah, showing it to
that's a great one.
Yeah, that's what we do. We just Scion blows up Great Britain and fade to black. Roll credits.
Oh my gosh,
the hero's lost.
Perfect.
Yeah, I think shorter episode. I think that's fine. I think we're not going to drag this out for too long here. Let the fans go back to all their other Worm podcasts about adapting it for film and television.
Well, they got to start reading the next arc.
Yeah, exactly. Which, by the way, if there are any other podcasts that talk about adapting Worm, let me know because I want to listen to them. I want more of this.
No, I don't think anyone else is as insane as we are.
I know, it makes me sad. Makes me sad every day.
I try.
That's okay. That's why we're here.
Uh-huh.
Got to start the conversation somewhere.
And boy, have we.
Arc 28. Not a short arc, but a short adaptation.
Short recap.
Yeah. And I think we'll probably, again, sound like a broken record every time, but we'll put a pin on a few of these points. Definitely going to be revisiting a few of these beats as we put together the season, kind of structure it. Next arc's going to be a lot of fun. Arc 29, Cauldron arc will be a blast. So stick around for that. Brockton Bay Book Club, of course, first. So enjoy our thoughts on the arc as a whole, and then join us the following week for more dissecting. And as always, if you enjoy these conversations and you want to discuss them more intimately, we have a Discord exclusively for our patrons. So consider stopping on by joining our Patreon and hanging out with us. We do bonus videos. We've got a few other videos, clips, conversations, memes, all sorts of fun stuff going on over there. Built a fun little community of Worm fans, and we'd love to have you.
Mm-hmm.
And until next time, as always, take that, you worms.
Thank you so much for listening. Read along with us at parahumans.wordpress.com. We'd love to hear your thoughts. What did you love? What did you hate? Anything you think we missed, etc., as long as it's kind. If you'd like to get in touch, you can find us on Twitter, Threads, Instagram, TikTok, and Reddit at Brocktonbaybc, or click the link in the description.